welcome back to my channel. Today's video is just a little bit of a kind of educational video really. Thank you all for your comments about my pal's complaint. I would like to do a response video at some point. Might take a bit of time. I can never predict when I'll do these things, but I would like to anyway. When I've got a moment, I would like to go over the comments and sort of revisit that, but it might take me a little bit of time. Bear with me. I have seen your comments though, so I'll try and get back when I can. But in this video, on a slightly different topic, I just wanted to do an educational video really on the 2010 Equality Act and other disability legislation that preceded it, because I feel that lots of people probably aren't fully aware of what the Act encompasses and might not know their rights under the legislation or what constitutes a disability under disability law. So I really wanted to just go through the Equalities Act so that people are fully aware of their rights under the Act. Okay, so let's go through it. So I got my information, by the way, from the Citizens Advice website. That's where I got my information, so you can go and check it out if you want to have a look at it for yourself. Obviously you can go and read the Equalities Act in its entirety online, but that could take a bit of time. So it's sometimes better just to have a kind of, you know, abridged kind of rundown, because don't always have the time or energy to read through, you know, lots of writing. So what disabilities then are covered by the Equalities Act? Well, it's actually, the list is pretty extensive. There aren't many conditions that aren't, there are a few conditions which I'll get onto which aren't covered by the Act. There's a very small number of conditions that aren't covered by the Act, but the vast majority of disabilities and impairments are covered by the Act. So, for example, you might be covered by the Act if you have the following conditions: specific learning difficulties such as dyscalculia, dyslexia, dyspraxia, speech and language difficulties, learning disabilities, or what's in America is called intellectual disabilities, autism, ADHD, epilepsy, migraines, and mental health conditions such as depression, OCD, severe phobias, and even some conditions such as menopause might actually come under the Act as well. So it really does cover a lot of conditions. Of course, I'm not going to list all of them, all the physical disabilities as well, you know. ME as well can be covered, ME, and also, as I say, physical conditions, back problems, hip problems, basically I could go on and on. Think of all the disabilities you can name, they will be covered under the Act, but only under certain conditions. So it's not a case that just because you have said condition you are automatically covered by the Act. There are a very few conditions, by the way, which are considered to be, which are going to be covered by the Act automatically. There are a very few number of conditions which by law are automatically considered to be a disability. In other words, you don't have to provide any evidence for disability. You are automatically considered to be disabled if you have the following conditions: if you have cancer, if you have HIV, if you are certified as blind or severely sight impaired, or requiring, or even just sight impaired where you need glasses. You are automatically considered to be disabled if you need glasses. So, in other words, if you need to wear glasses or contact lenses, you are automatically considered to be disabled. You don't even need to provide any further evidence. According to the Equalities Act, if you need to wear glasses, you are seen to have a visual impairment, you are automatically considered to be disabled, even if you wearing glasses has removed the disability. You are still, in a sense of remove the impairment, I should say, you're still disabled. If it's remove the impairment, like wearing glasses, according to the Equalities Act, you are still considered to be automatically disabled. And multiple sclerosis is an automatic disability as well. So by law, if you have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis, you are automatically considered to be disabled under the law. You don't need to provide any further evidence. That diagnosis essentially is enough. And also, like I said, HIV positive, even if there are no symptoms, that also counts as a disability. Severe disfigurement, severe facial scarring, that also is automatically considered to be a disability under the Equalities Act. So those conditions, everyone with them is considered to be disabled, regardless of impairment. So someone might not necessarily need to be severely impaired or to have symptoms, but because they've got those diagnoses, according to the Equalities Act, they're automatically considered to be disabled. For every other condition, though, it's not an automatic disability. So autism is not an automatic disability under the law. Most people with autism are considered to be disabled under the law, but it's not an automatic disability. By that I mean that just having a diagnosis of autism in and of itself is not enough to automatically make someone disabled under the law. They need to have, in order to be considered to be disabled under the law, if you are autistic, and the same applies for dyslexia, dyscalculia, and all those other potential qualifiers under the Equalities Act, you need to have, it comes under Section 6 of the Equalities Act. You are disabled if, and only if, you have a physical or mental impairment. So autism will come under a mental impairment. You have a physical or mental impairment and it has a substantial and long-term adverse effect on ability to do normal day-to-day activities. So let's face it, most people with autism are going to be disabled under the Equalities Act because, let's face it, you only tend to get diagnosed with autism if you have an impairment. And when you're getting diagnosed with autism, one of the criteria is a clinically significant impairment. So the vast majority, if not all, realistically, autistic people are going to be considered disabled under the Equalities Act. But unlike, say, something like cancer or HIV, you are not automatically considered to be disabled under the Equalities Act. In other words, you have to provide evidence of impairment to qualify under the Equalities Act. And most autistic people will be able to do that. Most autistic people will be able to provide evidence of disability and therefore will be covered. It's just that it's not an automatic legal disability, like something like cancer, for example. And you are protected under the Equalities Act, by the way, even if you yourself don't consider yourself to be disabled, if you've got that long-term significant impact on your life. So there are some people who might not like the disability word for all sorts of ideological weird reasons, but they do exist. A lot of like neurodiversity advocates, for example, but they will still be covered by the Equalities Act if they have the evidence that it's causing them long-term impairment in day-to-day activities. So as I said, and I'll just say again, some impairments are automatically treated as disability, even if they don't affect your day-to-day activities. And as I said, there are such things as cancer, being blind, or having a visual impairment and needing glasses, multiple sclerosis, HIV, a severe disfigurement. They're automatically considered to be disability, even if you can't show evidence of impairment, or like say they're not causing many symptoms. So someone could even be asymptomatic. Like for example, people with HIV who might not have any symptoms, like it's being treated or whatever, they'll still be considered legally disabled under the Equalities Act, even if they're not actually experiencing any symptoms, But there are just a few exceptions to the rule of having to show impairment. So autism isn't an automatic qualifier. However, practically speaking, pretty much all autistic people will qualify just because of the nature of autism and the fact that you have to show impairment to get diagnosed in the first place. Okay, I'm going to move over to video number 2 now to just tidy up some other confusions that some people might have about the Equality Act and your rights. So let's move over to video number 2.